This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Yes, everybody! You know the drill. We've started this podcast to help anyone who's remotely interested in trapping and neutering animals. We're the help we did not receive when we first wanted to get involved, and we want to be your new besties in the TNR world. I'm Alex, one of your hosts for this ride, and I'm so grateful to have Adele by my side. Hey, Adele!
Hey, Alex, how's it going? Today we are joined by Elle. Elle is the founder and rescuer at Hoppy Acre Sanctuary in the UK, in Essex, and also behind the Instagram page Agents of Liberation. So Hoppy Acre is an animal sanctuary in Essex, UK, and while they predominantly rescue rabbits, if you couldn't tell from the very cool name, Hoppy Acre, they also have rescued and rehabilitated multiple local wild species like squirrels and some other carnivorous animals like foxes and other little animals running around.
Yeah, helped with rescue of foxes, badgers, magpies, crows. I've done lots of birds in the past as well, but yeah, completely any species that need help, more than happy to either help myself or, if my knowledge doesn't cover them, find somewhere else and an experienced rehabber to take over and help.
That's awesome. Cool. So definitely non-speciesist, all species sanctuary, which is really cool. But yeah, your most residents there are rabbits and bunnies, right? How did you start working with rabbits?
I mean, rabbits, if you had said to me at the start it would be rabbits, I probably wouldn't have known or guessed. I think actually something that I'm sure you know and experience is you actually learn the most through tragedy. That seems to be when you learn your biggest life lessons, whether it be in dealing with animals or kind of any walk of life. And the first rabbit that we ever had or brought into the home was before my wife and I went vegan, before Hoppy Acre was a thing. And we went into a pet shop and we bought a rabbit that had them in relatively small boxes being displayed like trophies. So it's really important to also note that we don't suddenly forget our roots and we don't suddenly get amnesia because or not all, but I was part of the problem, not the solution once upon a time. And we lost that rabbit after around 10 months. He was never well from the day we got him, missexed when we got him, was sick from probably 2 months in, on and off. And then we eventually lost Rusty, his name was. We lost Rusty due to a lack of knowledge and poor vet care. And knowing what I know now, he definitely would have survived if I knew then what I know now. So in a way, it really kind of does come full circle. And I think as part of that, accepting that there will be tragedy and accepting that is part of the learning process, which does go and has gone a long way in, I guess, the volume of help needed, and the fact that the more you help, the more loss you're going to experience. And through that loss, it has to be seen as a learning curve. Everything you go through, especially when you're dealing with others that can't necessarily communicate with you the way you either wish they could or the way that you wish you could understand them more. If you can accept that you'll learn through that tragedy and see it as learning, I think it really does help with the overall dealing with the grief and the trauma of that loss. Does that sound like something that rings true for you as well?
I think it's something we don't talk as much about in rescue and sanctuary. I mean, even what Alex and I do, which is more specific to spay and neuter as well. Like, there is always so much to learn. And we're kind of always fighting this uphill battle of trying to learn more in order to do better. But it often feels like we're fighting a losing cause because there's just so much need and mistakes are made and things like that. And it's hard to acknowledge that sometimes we make mistakes and that affects animals' lives, and we've set out to help them and make their lives better. But it is simply a fact of this industry and us running around doing our best. It's interesting you point out how this first rabbit, Rusty, came from a pet shop and was actually a purchase. This is an interesting connection between the pet shop industry actually being quite like a driver of animals in need of rescue. Would you say rather than like wild rabbits that people contact you needing help, do you get most of your rescues from pet shops who are like selling sick animals or have sold pregnant animals or wrongly sexed animals, things like that?
I mean, everything you just said and more. It's every single imaginable background story, from meat farm survivors, test lab survivors, unwanted purchase pets or animals, acquired, passed around families, like 3 or 4 different households, then eventually dumped, strays that are dumped, brought here, give birth here. I mean, yeah, I would say 3 or 4 out of 5 requests are people trying to get you to take on their irresponsible choice they made, which was one day to walk into a shop and commodify the life of another by buying them for £30 or £40, buying a habitat that doesn't even come close to being big enough for them to actually flourish in. They don't give them the basic needs, basic medical needs like vaccination, spay or neuter. And then suddenly they want to pass on that responsibility to you. And before you know it, there's another £250 that's coming from us. We are self-funded. We do have support and we do get help just through building relationships and trust with our supporters and followers. But ultimately, every time a rabbit comes to us that has not been looked after, because we do get looked after rabbits as well, people will contact us and I mean, there's lots of really sad stories, but like parent dying who had rabbits, people that have been evicted. Like I more than I ever thought when we started this, but at least 1 a month of rabbits that have been bought as manipulative tools to keep partners in abusive relationships.
What?
Yeah,
wow.
men, and it's mostly, I mean, it's always men, but men that go into pet shops, buy 2 cute rabbits, take them home in a cage for their wife, and it's entrapment. People use it. It's another way that human beings in 2025 or in the current part of history we're in, where rabbits are used to keep women in relationships, because it's like, also, if you are in a marriage or a relationship, having animals is one of the reasons why relationships actually stay, whether it's a good one or a bad one. So if you think you make this gesture, it's not a gesture at all, it's actually abuse, but a gesture of, oh, look what I got you, look at this beautiful trophy, you know, it's just another layer of that. Yeah, and I hear that surprise in your voice, but it's the truth. But yeah, I mean, 3 out of 4, they've come from, well, in this country, it's mostly pets at home. And more often than not, it's within the first 8 weeks of them being purchased. That's how quickly their kids have got sick, or how quickly they've realized they aren't just fluffy toys that you don't have to look after. Like, rabbits are a very complex species. They are right in the middle of being mice or rats or guinea pigs, and then the cats and dogs. They're right in the middle. They're not cared for correctly. The knowledge out there is terrible. The vet care in the UK and all over the world is bad because there are not enough exotic specialists or rabbit savvy vets. And that is even the vets within the practices. They're being the vet practice within the pet shop they're being sold in. Another part of Hoppy Acre, because I've always said it, is I want to help as many as I can, even if they don't come through our doors. The amount of messages that I receive from people that need help, and I provide the help that I wish I had in my first year with a rabbit. They're being told they're going to the vet, spending £200 odd, £300 odd, and the most basic thing hasn't been suggested to them, which is a blood test or a poo test. There's so much done that is incorrect, and it's so broken.
It's a mess.
Yeah, real a mess that truthfully cannot be solved for decades. That's how bad it is. We are decades away from real change.
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of this sounds very similar to the things we face in the cat and dog rescue world and the spay and neuter world. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to talk to you and hear your experience with all this, because like cats and dogs, rabbits may not be like running around the street like they are in the majority of the world, although they are when they're like abandoned, because people assume they're wild animals even though they bought them at a pet shop and just leave them outside when they're done. But they are in a way another type of animal who could be considered like an urban animal, a city animal. They're not wild species, they're domesticated species who rely on us. And this is why a lot of us feel obligated to provide them care. Now, one of those types of care you mentioned is desexing, yeah? And it sounds like you've had quite a few cases where animals have been brought to you already pregnant, or they were sold like, oh no, don't worry, they're two males, but actually they're male and female, and one was pregnant, and then they end up with all of these rabbits and they don't know what to do. So it sounds to me you're starting to paint a picture of the reproduction not being managed or controlled or prevented under humans' care as one of the factors of why animals keep winding up in this situation.
I mean, when it comes to what we're just speaking about in terms of pet shops selling rabbits, I mean, it starts earlier than that, because rabbits, I mean, I reckon, I don't have the figure, but it's well over half of rabbits that are sold in pet shops are sold missexed. So whether they're selling singles or pairs, it's why so many bring home two rabbits aren't advised to spay or neuter by the pet shop, because the actual money for that wouldn't come into them. Pets at home don't do it, so why would they suggest it? It's not going to profit them, so why would they care? The rabbits to them, whether or not there is one person that works within that store that does care about animals, because there are good people that do work within these bad companies. And I know I've got 3 or 4 workers at Pets at Home that locally, that if anyone goes in there to buy a rabbit, they actually stop them buying before calling me, which is amazing, right? And it just goes to show there is something in being friends with the enemy, because you do get good people that work within bad organizations. But rabbits should not be removed from their mothers, I believe, before around 10 to 11 weeks. And if there is a good bond between them, leave them for longer, because it is only going to help them as they get older. It's only going to help them develop more. Even after they stop feeding from mum, they still gain, again, this isn't necessarily a scientific thing, but from my point of view and from what I see, the longer they stay with mum, the more they develop. But you've got rabbits being taken from mum at 8 weeks old, too early. They are still feeding. And also probably what's not happening is there is not okay, so if I have a stray bought here and mum gives birth, I can quickly detect once they're not just little pink beans and they really become small versions of what they're going to become, you start to see which ones are going to be the runt of the litter, or the ones that might not necessarily be the runts, but the ones that are below the leaders. They're the ones that aren't going to develop quickly. They're the ones that are going to have the health issues. If we're taking babies away from mums at 8 weeks old, breeders, pet shops are buying them from breeders, or breeders that are selling direct to the public. They are doing that without any thought about how these rabbits are going to grow and how they are going to develop, which is why how so many rabbits die younger. If you're part of any rabbit group, support groups in the UK, every morning there's at least 20 or 30 posts. Oh my God, I've just gone outside, opened the shed, and one of my rabbits is dead. What's happened? What's happened? What's happened? And this is what I tell people that want to adopt from me, because they need to realize this is a really important part of having rabbits in your life. Almost all rabbits are ticking time bombs. And that is because they have been so destroyed genetically, their bloodlines are so ruined through inbreeding that people are going and buying rabbits from a pure breeder, someone that apparently is doing it responsibly, which is a complete fallacy because there's no such thing as a responsible breeder. But you've got someone going to a breeder and buying a rabbit with no idea about how they've actually been cared for growing up their first 8 to 10 weeks. And for all you know, what you have actually just gone and purchased is the product of mum and dad having a baby, mum getting impregnated by son having, or a male kit and a female kit, siblings having babies. You've then got now rabbit breeds that are a bit like the French bulldogs and pugs. So you know that they're being bred because they're the type of trophies that humans want on their shoulder, or it's like their latest accessory, but they don't care about the fact that they are kind of purchasing misery, and they are putting more money into a system that is breeding animals that are going to have health issues. The people that are buying them aren't going to do the surgery that's going to help them breathe, right?
Yeah.
So you've got breeds of rabbit like flat-faced lops or just lops.
Lops are the ones with the long ears, right?
Yeah, like downy ears, as I like to say. Yeah. Their faces are getting flatter. Their organs aren't going to be they don't have the same resistance as the ones that are coming from slightly better backgrounds or slightly better breeding, let's say. But the more time goes on and the bigger this problem becomes, because rabbits have become a very, very popular trophy pet, and that is all they are. The 5 or 10% of the public that get rabbits and then create the most wonderful setups for them. And truly, I love those people and I will do anything if they come to me for help and advice. But the majority of people are buying them as trophies. And just like when people want to adopt, in general, the ones that will get adopted are the cute breeds. And the cute breeds are always the breeds that have health issues. And that's just the way it is, They don't want like the typical brown cottontail looking rabbits, the ones that do survive because they are still like their history and ancestry, which is the wild brown cottontail bunny. I've got giants here, and giant rabbits are like they have my heart. But rabbits aren't meant to be giants. They live, I'm not saying they live in pain, but they are living in a body that is too big for them. They aren't designed for that. At the very least, though, giants do grow into their bodies, whereas, for example, a New Zealand White, which is like the beagle breed of rabbits that are used for testing and for production for humans to consume their bodies, let's say, they're the breeds that don't grow into their bodies. So like I had five meat farm survivors, which I've now only got 2 left. They've all lived amazing lives. I'm really proud of the work we did with them. But the 2 remaining both have arthritis, both have spondylosis, and they are the same size at 4 years old as they were when they arrived at 5 months old. They are they are like the broiler chicken. They are growing at an absurd rate. And by the time they're 4 months old, they haven't even had a chance to develop correctly. And again, it is a miracle that I've had these 5, and 3 of them lived till they were over 3.5. And I've still got 2, Boo and Maggie, and they're now 4.5. So yeah, as you can tell, when you just start talking about them, there are so many issues and just different avenues when it comes to rabbits to talk about. And they are the most, all animals are fucked. Let's just be honest. I don't know if you're allowed to swear, but all animals, truthfully, all species really are buggered because of our control and dominance that we show over them. And it is not about who suffers more than others, but in every single capacity of rabbits' existence, they are misunderstood just on every level. And that's why it's a problem that is decades or centuries away from being fixed, solved, or really improved.
Can I ask you a question, El? How are they considered by the English government? Are they considered a wild species or a domesticated species? What is the term?
I mean, there's two. You have wild rabbits, and then you have domesticated rabbits.
Okay.
The one thing that is the ultimate truth is that none of them have any legislation. None of them have any protection. They are literally there to be used, abused, and exploited any way a human decides to. And just to get the RSPCA to act on an abuse case with a rabbit is months and months of evidence, footage. You have to berate them. You know, it's like they have to see a rabbit half dead that has no chance of surviving before they'll even make a phone call. And I know it's the same. It's the same with dogs and cats. I know that. And, you know, other species. Yeah, it's just, you know, this sanctuary started. It was never planned just to be a rabbit sanctuary and rescue and adoption. But once you start and your rescue name starts to get out there and you just build some trust, and then one of these directories that vet you put you on their website, the amount of inquiries and requests, you just realize you have to focus on them. I have to focus on them because they need all the help. They need all the help. If I didn't know how to say no, I've got anywhere between 50 and 70 rabbits here. And there is only Magda, my wife, and I that do run the sanctuary day to day. We've got loads of support and help, like the most amazing volunteers. But I could easily have 1,000 rabbits here. And I've only been doing this for 4 or 5 years. You know, it's never ending. It's over and over. It's, I'm trying to rehome my 2 rabbits, need rid of my rabbits, got space. It's every imaginable message. And then it's making sure that you will get punched over and over with these messages that actually kill you inside because you care so much, right?
Yeah.
And then you're already low, you're already angry, you're already frustrated. And then you get that phone call from someone and they might get the end of the day version of you. You might be a bit short with them. But then once the conversation starts and they tell you something where it is a case where through no fault of their own, something has happened to them or someone and they desperately need your help. And that was the reason I started the rescue. So you have to manage this endless rabbit Tetris with people. It's like this game of rabbit bumper cars, but wanting to always make sure that when there's a human in need, and I mean really in need, that you can help them. You know, the ones that haven't made an irresponsible decision, the ones that have done everything for this animal that was in their life or animals, they have kept them up with their vaccination history. They are spay neutered. You know, they have got a full vet history. They're the ones really that deserve your help because they actually did something to try, maybe not better the species overall. It wasn't a selfish decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go and buy an animal. It is never a selfless decision. It is always selfish. But when you go to an adoption center or a rescue, that is one of the most selfless acts you can make as a human being towards another, in my personal opinion. That kind of the same way I feel about humans that have human children. Having a human child, really, it's never really a selfless act. It's normally selfish. But if you choose to adopt a human child, I don't know if there is a much more selfless act than that, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, and it's such an obvious thing to all of us who work in rescue, no matter what species you're working with. Like, there's so many animals in need, and, you know, we're all talking about how great and needed adoption is and rescue and things like that. But a lot of these frustrations sound really similar to so many rescuers I know. And it's one of the reasons why I think you probably say the same, Alex, that we have devoted so much of our time to spay and neuter to try to prevent people breeding these animals into these cases, because once they're alive, it's just so much work to take care of them to such a level that they need. Can we talk about that a little bit? Is sterilization something that you practice at your center?
Yeah, so all rabbits that come to Hoppy Acre, unless there is medical advice given or they do not pass a health test, they all will be spay or neutered and always vaccinated. Obviously to me, to those who listen to this who might not know, all general anesthetic for rabbits is deemed high risk. It's not so much that the surgery is invasive, it's that rabbits in general don't really stabilize their vitals very well. And actually, a big thing with rabbits that isn't spoken about within the rabbit community a lot, or it's something I don't see, is the surgery and the surgeon is important, but the pre and post care given by vet nurses and then the person who takes them back home, that is as important as the surgeon. If you take a rabbit into a vet practice that you don't know, and their method of, like, they will go into one of the kennels, right, that most animals will go in. Now, if you stick a rabbit into a metal kennel and you do not provide a safe space for them, they are going to go under general anesthetic with their heart rate already not stabilized. A rabbit that is very stressed could already be developing one of the issues that is like a typical or a common rabbit problem, like max stress on a rabbit can cause echiniculi levels to rise, which can then affect them neurologically. If you put a rabbit that has got the beginnings of EC under general anesthetic, they will die. Like, it is a high probability they'll die. If you put a rabbit in a room that without having a suitable setup, and this is something that I'm going to do in the future and other rescues should, you go and talk to all vet nurses that work within practices, how they are meant to care for rabbits pre-surgery. It is so vital and important, and I am certain that over the next 20 years this is going to be spoken about more. But many rabbits that are dying under general anesthetic, although yes, it's happening because they don't have the resistance, and because, like I was saying before, they're inbred, their organs don't work as well. A big part of that is they are going into vets not being, the pre-care is awful. You have, for example, a rabbit going into a vet, right, to be spay or neutered. They are put into a kennel. Maybe they are given a little mound of hay, but no hide space, nowhere to hide away where they've got shade over their head. Maybe they should have a few of those, right? And it should be set up so it is a mini habitat for them, because rabbits do not adjust well to random change. And when there's random change, what do you see? That really quick breathing. Their heads go down. The facial, it's a chart, cranial chart. You'll start to see their faces slightly change as they become more stressed, and then they'll be in pain. And then you've got a cat meowing. You've got two dogs that are barking, and they're going into the same room without even a space to hide in. And then they're going through surgery that is high risk, even if they were at their most calmest point. So all of these things affect the surgery. And then also, they might have the surgery, they might be fine, come home, and within 24 hours, they just fade and die. You get them back to the vet, they're too far gone. Or they might go under, they suffer some form of cardiac arrest, and I've had this, they're resuscitated, they don't have the surgery, but they've come back to life. The vets, we're a rescue, right? And they know me. So they will say, listen, this has happened. Most cases, I will pick them up because I can do the overnight that the vet could do, but at least I can put them in the most suitable environment, and they never come back round. So it's not just the surgery. It's so important with rabbits and smaller domestic mammals, the pre-care and then the post, even the things like the pre-gut loading, post critical care feeding. Rabbit gets picked up by someone who's not me, who's not experienced. They're not going to ask them about gut loading. They're not going to ask them if they've passed feces yet. So all of these things, that all has to improve if the rate of buns not living through the surgery, it's very, using words like very common, but you see it everywhere. When you're part of the rabbit community, you see it, and then you'll get the percentage of people that, I can't do that to my baby. I can't put my baby through that risk. And the truth is, it's not actually about your baby. You can't, the idea of losing them But by not doing it, for example, not spaying a female, by the time they hit 4 and 5, the chances are they will already have the masses growing in and around that area. And if you've not done it by 6 or 7, you can still do it, but you are risking their life. So you might not want to do it in the interim. And although it's because you care, you are still being selfish, because they do need it for their health. Like, they really, really do.
Can I ask you about that quickly? Like, it sounds like they're very sensitive animals and a lot of care needs to be taken in order to do the procedure before, during, and after safely. But what are some of the risks besides the one you just mentioned that both males and females face if they are not spayed or neutered?
Okay, so, I mean, first things first, although some people who have rabbits and have single rabbits in their homes might not like this, but no rabbit bonds to a human and flourishes the way they do with their own kind. And I believe that for 99% of all animals of all species. I know we love the idea of humans being so bonded to an animal, and I get it. I've had it. I still have it now. I've got my all of the rabbits here, but the 4 rescue cats that live with me. And I get it. I get that we want to have this amazing intrinsic bond, but animals flourish with their own kind. They will be healthiest and happiest. They'll recover the best. All of these things when they're with their own. So if we want to have happy, healthy rabbits that are going to live longer, you ultimately want them to be able to be with their own, which means if you haven't got to, you need to adopt another, not buy, and do bonding, which I do here. I do bunny speed dating here with people that want to adopt. But having 2 boys or 2 girls, because you're not going to have a boy and a girl, because if you don't do them, they're going to have endless babies, and then they're going to end up at this rescue and they're going to cost me another 5 or 10 grand because there'll be hundreds more. You are going to struggle. I'm not saying it's not possible, but you are going to really struggle to bond rabbits together that have not been done, because it isn't just a joke or a one-liner. Rabbits do act like rabbits. Rabbits will just endlessly have sex, get pregnant, and the mums will have the babies and get pregnant again 3 hours later, maybe an hour later.
God.
It's instant. They give birth and they can. That's why I get the messages, right? With Elle, can you take in these 5? Mum has been feeding them. They're 5 weeks old, and the person didn't take dad away from mum quick enough, and she got pregnant again. She's raising 2 litters.
Oh my God.
So if we want rabbits to have the best possible futures and the best possible lives for the time they are here with us, you spay and neuter for them to have that bond and that relationship with each other. Outside of that, I do think it is now, I think it is either close to or surpassed 1 in 2 rabbits that are not spay and neutered, that don't pass through other ailments or injuries or diseases or parasites or whatever. 1 in 2 will eventually die from cancer of that area, whatever it might be. Obviously, you do it because people are dumping animals left, right, and center. There are many rabbits in rescues that are half wild, half domestic. I have one here called Tilt, but there is a difference with cats. Obviously, trap neuter release or trap vax neuter release, you are releasing them, right? You are releasing them, but they have survival instincts. A domestic rabbit in the wild would have to be the luckiest rabbit in the world to probably survive more than a couple of weeks. And there are miracle stories. Even one of the buns that got adopted from me, lady got in touch with me and said, I can tell you now because, he's home, but a bun that got adopted, an opportunistic fox, during the middle of the day when the family were in the garden, ran across the garden, took the rabbit and jumped a fence. I've never had it. I don't ever want to see it. Took this beautiful rabbit, and then you would never think possible that rabbit could have survived. And 5 days later, turned up in the next door neighbor's garden, and only had a scratch. But that is like the rarity. Dumped domestic breed rabbits just will not survive. They do not have it in them. They're prey animals. They're just, they won't survive. And again, it's about, we already have, and not just rabbits, right? But just, we are already globally euthanizing probably now well over 3.5 million healthy animals a year because of shelters that just keep having more and more in.
Yeah, you mean like in shelters, especially in America and places where they have high euthanasia rates. Yeah.
And listen, there isn't enough space for every animal that we've bred because we dominate all of them, because humans, and that's another podcast, right? But if you truly, and you are making a decision, right, without their consent, but it's for the betterment of them in the current situation that we're in, we are trying our best to control a situation that has gotten out of control because of human apathy and human irresponsibility towards others. If we want the place that we start to really start making a difference is through spay, neuter, and where possible, vaccination.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of things that we hear people say as well, although I didn't realize the rates of reproductive complications related to cancer and stuff and intact rabbits was that high. In cats, we all know and dogs, pyometra is a risk for female animals, and other types of cancers like testicular cancers and prostate cancers are a risk for male cats and dogs, but it's nowhere near as high as half of them staying intact. So that's really interesting. But we hear people say this all the time, right? Like, we want them to have a natural life. Like, I don't want to remove this from them. But what you've just illustrated is they're not natural animals. They've been dominated by humans. They've been changed, and they're reliant on us to give them proper care.
Animals are the victims of capitalism. That's what animals are. They are just they're the products and the victims of capitalism. And the quicker that everyone, or all humans, but specifically humans that have sanctuaries and in rescue, a part of my activism as a human being is anti-capitalism and understanding the effect capitalism has had on every species out there. And that's why it has to be an anti-capitalist approach. I understand that there's lots of nuance there. And again, it's for another podcast and another time, but it's so important to have that understanding of what capitalism has done to them. And the industrialization that started with, farmed animals, or animals that we farm for their bodies, that has now turned into an absolutely out of control domestic breeding for trophies. And that is what animals are. Animals are seen as trophies. And you only have to look at the people that, how much they love their animals. They go on TikTok or Instagram and they've got them dressed up, or they've got them doing this, or they've got them doing that, or some breeder comes along and says how much she loves rabbits. And it's like, no, you can't. You cannot exploit the reproductive organs of any female and say that you love the species. Like, it's a total fallacy, and that's where it has to start. That's where it has to start. And unfortunately, I'm a huge advocate for Animal Agency. The page Animal Agents of Liberation is all about animal self-liberation, not humans liberating animals. It's about actually realizing that although, yes, they are victims of humans and capitalism, they absolutely protest themselves every day. They free themselves every day. They take revenge every day where they can, right? But as a rescuer or a rescue or anyone that's trying to better their lives, it starts with spay and neutering. That's how you help to control this situation that is so out of control. So out of control.
Yeah, really well said. And you made some great connections before as well related to commodification of animals under a capitalist system, especially in relation to pet shops and people just purchasing them as objects for a child, a spouse, what have you. Something that Alex discovered about wild rabbits and some projects that were focusing on spay and neuter of wild rabbits, we thought was kind of unique and curious. We wanted to ask you about that. Do you want to talk about that a little, Alex?
Yeah, so actually, in Vancouver, there's a big rabbit rescue. They have over 500 rabbits. And I asked them, do you guys focus on spay and neutering wild rabbits? And they were saying that in BC, in British Columbia, rabbits are considered a wild species. So it's illegal to spay and neuter them. And that's where it's so hard for them because they end up with 500 rabbits. They don't want 500 rabbits, but what are they supposed to do when they can't even spay and neuter them, like the wild ones? And the woman who runs the shelter said that if the laws are not changing, we are going to see an overpopulation of rabbits, just like we're seeing stray cats in Greece right now. It's going to be the same.
And you know what they're going to do? The government are going to make a decision and they're going to release some sort of a virus to wipe them all out like they did in, was it Australia, maybe 10 years ago? Because it's now been out. Forgive me, I can't remember if it's Australia, New Zealand or South Africa, but there was the overpopulation. They released the a virus. I can't remember. People can go and look this up. But that how we create the problem. And then how do we solve it? We destroy them.
It's insane.
Yeah.
That's human being nature. Seek something out and destroy. I mean, we're seeing that every day, right? Every time we go onto Instagram at the moment. But I mean, yeah, the situation with wild rabbits and spay and neuter, yeah, it's not something that I've done a lot of work on. Or, I've had several wild rabbits come into the rescue in the past. It's a tough one. How would I relate in terms of in the UK and what I've dealt with? Like, for example, muntjac deers or grey squirrels, they're deemed invasive, right? Which they're invasive. They're not invasive. Human beings brought them here. They then became invasive. We created the problem. Now, how are the UK trying to solve it? Well, they tell all organisations that if you come across one, you do not help them, you kill them.
And vet clinics, right? They have to euthanize grey squirrels if people bring them in.
If I took a grey squirrel to a vet clinic tomorrow, euthanasia. If I took a muntjac to a vet, euthanasia. Which is why if I was, or if ever have had, I would do the care at home to the best of my ability with other rehabbers and coming together like most things that should be done, community-based help, community-based, the more work that you can do in the local communities, I think that's another way of how we, not just with animals, but moving forward, just as humans in humanity, is this having these ideas of these gangs of power where, with tax-paid gangs like police, for example, where actually, no, we can do much better work within communities, working together, working with people that we are all equals. No one is given more power based on some system that was built but to serve certain types and the certain people in the world, so yeah, like if there is something in the community, you deal with it locally, you get people involved, you protect each other, protect them. And I mean, yeah, like I don't have any licenses to help wild animals, but I can assure you I will help any wild animal at any time and no one's going to tell me any different. And as long as you know where you stand with law, there is plausible deniability can be a beautiful thing. It can be used for bad, and it often is, but no one can come here and tell me that if I've got a grey squirrel that I'm rehabbing or an orphan grey squirrel that I'm looking after, no one can tell me anything. If you're silly enough to if you do rehab, and no one would be this silly, and you're silly enough to walk into a local park that's got lots of rangers and just be like, run free in front of people, well, then, you're going to find yourself in trouble. But as long as you've got your wits about you and you know what you're doing, you can get away with helping anyone.
Shall we have that as the title of the podcast then? Plausible deniability.
No, it made me sound like an abuser.
Well, I think we have to take a quick break, but then we're going to come back and wrap things up with Elliot.
You know the expression, cats have 9 lives. Well, what if you can give them one more? The Give Them 10 movement is on a mission to help give cats an extra life. How? With spay and neuter. Spaying or neutering your cat helps them live a longer, healthier life. And it helps control free-roaming cat populations too. Learn more about the benefits of spay and neuter and meet Scooter, the neutered cat, at givethem10.org. That's givethem10.org.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets.
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
And we're back with Elle for our last question. Elle, any piece of wisdom you want to share with our listeners? Anything you want to add to this conversation?
Just going back to something we were talking about earlier, and very much like me, I just went off on another tangent because that's what I do. But when I was speaking about tragedy and learning through tragedy, and when you're involved in rescue, and obviously I know with what you guys do, and you release an individual that you've helped, you never see them again. Now, the animals that I'm neutering and I'm spaying are coming back to Hoppy to either live here permanently as residents or be rehomed. Now, as someone that deals with roughly 150 to 200 rabbits a year, whether they come through the Hoppy doors or I just facilitate and help people, one thing that we're experiencing as a rescue is we experience loss, an animal passing probably every 6 weeks. And if you work it out on average, there will be, I went through a period last year where we lost 18 rabbits in just under 3 months for different reasons, whether it was, we've had the virus here, I've experienced the virus, whether it's a buns with old age, and it's, like when it rains, it pours. It is like that when you're in rescue, it happens like that. And the one thing about learning through tragedy is actually accepting that as a truth, really accepting that when you experience loss, when you're trying your best and trying your hardest, and you can't say sorry to them, you can, but you don't really feel like they understand it. If you can really understand that the lives that will be saved from what you'll learn from that loss, and I've experienced that already, tenfold. So many losses that have kept other rabbits alive because they taught me. It does make the grief and trauma from the loss and the relatively regular loss when you're dealing with small mammals more manageable. And I don't say easy. It's never easy. I have a life coach and therapist. I absolutely need them because I do struggle to grieve. I compartmentalize a lot, but I don't actually grieve. But if you can truly accept what I just suggested as a truth and almost like make it part of your rescue, that you're always learning and you will learn through loss, it will make things more manageable. And one thing that you won't suffer or you won't go through as often is burnout, because loss brings about burnout, and it really, really does. And I'm close with several other rabbit rescues in the UK, and they go through the same as what we go through, just at different times. And when you're someone on the outside seeing the behind the scenes of a human being behind a rabbit rescue in particular, and you see yourself in them when they're going through it, it just, in the deepest part of my heart, I truly believe that will help anyone that's either getting into rescue, does rescue, or founded or is part of a sanctuary.
Thank you so much, Elle. That's a really good advice. I think using our trauma and grief to help others, that's all you can do. It's to put that energy into something else and something that does good. While you were saying that, I have Tzatziki on my lap and I was just holding her no, I did. Elle, where can people find you?
Okay, so 3 places. So my personal Instagram is I am L Gold, but I_am_L_Gold. On there, I do a lot of human animal rights activism, a bit of political commentary, and I am a radical left and an ally to radical feminism. My the rescue page is the Hoppy Acre, again, the Hoppy_Acre, and my other page that I created a few years ago now, which actually means a lot to me. And if you want to learn about the stories of animals actually fighting back and liberating themselves, as opposed to just human beings liberating animals, it's agents_of_liberation. And it's a mixture of old news articles, historical pieces, and also new news stories of animals. It might be an elephant that has escaped a circus, or it might be a monkey that escaped a zoo, or a pig that jumped off a slaughter truck that's taking them to slaughterhouse. But I would suggest to anyone that's interested, or anyone that would be an animal rights activist, go and learn about the actual strength of animals, and don't only see them as a hopeless, helpless victim, because you'll find real strength in seeing how strong they are as well.
Thank you so much, Elle. We're so excited to have this conversation with you, and we appreciate you taking the time to share some of your knowledge, not all of it. That would take days or weeks. But yeah, thank you so much. We are running out of time, so we need to wrap it up. But yeah, we really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
And we appreciate all of you guys for listening to us speak about animal rights and what we can do to help them. So we would also love to hear about your experience. So send us a DM on Saaving Lives with 2 A's or Travel Animal Rescue on Instagram, and just share what you have to share with us. Maybe we can talk about it in another episode. See you all at our next episode, and in the meantime, stay out of trouble and keep trapping to save the streets one animal at a time.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.